What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Fatherhood Unscripted. It is, I don't even know what day it is. It's Saturday, 2:15. We're into February, well into February now, and we're excited. We got a new guest today. We got Mitch Osmond of Dad Nation. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on the show today. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Of course, yeah. DJ, how you doing, buddy? You got a new background.
Good. New background. I've moved out of the closet that I was in. Had a little desk in the closet that we had the office set up in. But now I've moved into my bedroom. I have a stand-up desk, which is amazing. I can't sit still to save my life, so having something to be able to stand up is great. But yeah, this is a new background for me. So
It was a nice little gift from his wife this week.
It was. She surprised me with it because we were moving everything out, and I had mentioned a couple times that I wanted a stand-up desk. So, she found one on out here. There's a thing called Nellis Auction, and you can find a steal for a lot of things. So, like, she'll go on there and she'll find, like, this desk was listed as like broken, missing pieces, but it was brand new, so people weren't bidding on it. So she got it for a steal. And so, yeah, it's we've done a lot of things on the auction. Might be a problem at this point, but we might have problems bidding there. But it's good. No, I definitely appreciate the stand-up desk for sure.
I'm actually in the closet as well. I just have a lot of lights and books and, art and stuff in my closet. It just happens to be very large.
Make it look good, yeah. He had a painting behind him in his closet, and it's a painting his mom had. And it was a little blurry. In one episode, we just got into it. We were talking about, we called it the blurry corner, and it was just a weird episode. But yeah. As long as you make it look good, you'll never know, right?
Yeah, I didn't have any space at all. I could barely move my chair. That's how bad it was. So
now we can dance around and move around. Yeah, we're good to go.
Dance around. Yeah.
Well, for everyone listening, you're usually either my grandma, a man, or a dad, and you know about fatherhood, and you know it's about showing up. It's about leading, growing, and being the best versions of ourselves for our kids, family, our wife. And Mitch has built an incredible community around that idea. So Mitch, could you just talk a little bit about just marriage and fitness and all the stuff that made Dad Nation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what you're looking for is a Genesis story, right? How it began?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So for me, I grew up in a home that was quite dysfunctional. My father was an alcoholic, drugs in the house, a lot of different things like that. So I grew up in the middle of a lot of, dysfunction, I would say. I didn't have a lot of male role models in my life. I didn't have a lot of male influence in my life. And so when I grew up and got married, there were a lot of lessons I had to learn the hard way. Mm-hmm. And as you know, when you get married, in some seasons you get put in the pressure cooker. And then, your true character or your systems kind of start to show. James Clear has a quote that says, you don't rise to the level of your habits, but you fall to the level of your systems. Mm. And I fell pretty far because I didn't really have much set in place. I didn't know how to be a man who like a great husband. I didn't know how to be a great father. I didn't, all those different things. And so we got into trouble real fast, man. We got to a point where I was about 60 pounds overweight. We were almost divorced, very, very close. We were about $100,000 in debt. I was turning to substances to sort of numb my mind, a lot of those things. And it was tough, man. Mm-hmm. And I hit a wall. I hit a rock bottom, if you will. And I was singing at a funeral. And this funeral was, because a lot of people ask me, what was your turning point, right? And there was the pastor who was talking to the people who were attending the funeral. The funeral was for this guy who was very affluent. He was a philanthropic man, gave, served, all those different things. So he challenged the crowd, and he said, "Are you living a life worth imitating? Right? When your time is up, will you be proud of the life that you lived?" Mm. And as I was getting ready to, and that was the only thing I heard. I just caught it. I caught the question, and dude, it stopped me in my tracks. And I thought in the moment, if I died today, would I be happy with the life that I lived? Would I have lived a life worth imitating? And I thought to myself, no one would want the marriage that I have. Nobody would want the bank account I have. Nobody would want the body that I have. No one would want the mind that I have, this dependency on substances, this mental health and all that kind of stuff. And so the next day, man, I got up and I just took ownership of everything. I stopped blaming everybody else. I stopped blaming my upbringing. I stopped blaming my, parents or, whatever the case was. And I just decided to step in. That day I woke up and it was minus 25. And that's Celsius, if you're aware of that, which is a savage cold. I put on my balaclava and I went for a run. I tried to run 5K. I made it about 250 meters and puked. I got serious about my finances that day. And if you go on my Instagram, you'll see a before and after photo. Mm-hmm. Well, that photo is the day that I did that. Man, a year and a half later, like, we were debt free, paid off $100,000 worth of debt. We got help with our marriage, counseling, psychology, all that stuff. Restored our marriage, lost the weight, of course, packed on some muscle, and just began obsessed with this development process, becoming better. And, the word excellence to some people is intimidating, but excellence is not an arrival point. Excellence is the journey of becoming better than I once was. So my competition is me yesterday. Yeah. Is, am I better today than I was yesterday? And so that was 8 years ago. And so what happened, man, was I learned a lot of lessons along that transformation journey. So I just started sharing, like just a couple of years ago, I launched this account, and I just started sharing lessons I've learned along the way. And then I'd have people messaging me being like, hey, man, how did you do that? Or how did you lose that weight? How did you get out of debt? Or I needed to hear that message. And, guys from wherever, North America, over Europe, you name it. And so they said, I started getting feedback like, do you have any long form content? Like, do you do podcasting or anything? I was like, nah, man, but maybe I can start. And so January, I started the podcast. And then shortly after that, I'd have people listen to the content being like, do you do coaching? Do you sell courses? Do you, can I learn from you another way? And then I just started coaching as well, based on the principles that I had applied to my own life. And I'd been in senior leadership positions for over a decade. So this concept of walking with men and helping men and mentoring them was not new to me. And so, yeah, man, here I am now today on the show as of February 2025. And this is kind of what I do now, man. I podcast, the Dad Nation podcast. I do group coaching for men. And then I do one-to-one coaching. And I teach men how to level up in their marriage, their minds, and their bodies. Men who have a conviction to be greater for their families, for their kids, for themselves, and I teach them the actionable steps on how to do that. So that's how I got started, man. That's the whole journey.
Awesome. That kind of resonates. It doesn't kind of. It does resonate with me and DJ, because this podcast, it was birthed out of. It was birthed out of the darkness. It's like a Lord of the Rings kind of thing.
It was formed in the darkness.
Yeah. So me and DJ were, kind of low points in our lives, and we've known each other forever. We've known each other since we were like 10, 11, and just becoming dads, kind of around the same time. His son's a little bit younger than mine, but just kind of around the same time, and then just everything that comes, like you said, with being married and being a dad, and then learning about mental disorders and just all the stuff you don't know that comes with the big things in life all started coming at us. And so the podcast really was birthed out of that, and we're just more of a place like, let's just get it out and let's talk about it. It's just kind of our therapy. And over the last year, for myself at least, I mean, DJ, he's lost a bunch of weight too. I've lost a bunch of weight, just mentally clear, we've refound God and just got back into life, And so to hear that is really cool. Like, just there's that moment in life that just hits you, and it's like, all right, well, I got to change.
Yeah. And, you mentioned God. I mean, the spiritual aspect of it is huge too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been in ministry positions for years as well as a pastor. So when I referenced the funeral, that was in a church. Mm-hmm. And so a big part of that transformation was getting really kind of getting on the right page spiritually, and just, a lot of guys, a lot of men in my experience are waiting, or they're, if they're believers, they're praying for God to send them a sign. They're praying for God to, give them the thing. And I'm like, you have the tools. Like, I literally posted about this morning on my Instagram. It was like, some people are, they pray and they ask God for a cake, and God gives them the batter, the eggs, the stove, the kitchen, and then they get frustrated and they leave the kitchen. And it's like, dude, you had all the resources readily at your disposal. And so sometimes people talk to me, and because I talk a lot about marriage, and I talk about fitness and mindset, and they say, well, what about God? And I said, well, God also gave us a brain and hands to take action and do work. And so, yeah, certainly there's a lot of things that we need to cover in prayer and all those things, but at the same time, we have to also take action. So I love that, man. I love that you found the Lord through that, because that's been a big part of my journey as well.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Alec.
No, you're good, bud.
You good? So yeah, no, I mean, it is crucial to find that faith, but like you said too, a lot of times it is about, like, people just want things kind of like handed to them. But if we know, like, anything that's handed to us, really, like anything that's free or whatever, do we really take it that serious? Because at the end of the day, like, it's like we didn't have to work for it. We didn't have to, when you have to work for something, it's kind of gives you a perspective of, and you cherish those things that you earn because of the hard work that you do. Whereas, like, if, like you were saying, like, if, like, if God just gives you the cake, is it really that, like, okay, cool. Like, but if he gives you all the batter and stuff and teaches you how to make it, and you go and you work through it and you find different ways to do this cake, well, now you're better than you would have been if he just handed you a cake. And so I really like that analogy. It definitely resonates. I've heard different ways it's been put. Like, you get that one where you're on the house and it's, there's a flood and God sends you the helicopter. You're like, no, waiting for God to save me. Gives you the boat. No, waiting for God. And then they pass away. They get to heaven. Like, God, what the heck? Well, I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. Like, I sent you all these resources. You just didn't take the step to save yourself, essentially. I gave you that option. And so, yeah, I really like that. But yeah, talking about marriage and kind of like finding your way, I know a lot of people, when they get into a relationship or they have kids, a lot of things are thrown at you. You start to realize all the stuff that you haven't dealt with. Like, now is like, you deal with it now, or you're going to lose your relationship with your spouse. Your kids are going to suffer. So talk a little bit more about, when you found that, like, path, like it's like, just talk about, that kind of a little bit more. Yeah, hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So basically, what helped me grow closer in my relationship with my wife, is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, for me, there was a lot that, I mean, that's a big question, but there were some big things that kind of helped us really tune things in. And a lot of those things weren't on the surface, right? And so, and I'll get to those, but the biggest thing that we stopped doing was, because I'll talk about some things we stopped doing, and I'll mention some things that we started doing. The biggest thing we stopped doing was comparing our marriage to other marriages. Comparison is the robber of joy.
Yep.
And if you don't hear me say anything else on this show, hear that. Because you will, I mean, we do especially as men, especially as fathers, as husbands. Well, this guy got his kids these gifts, or, he took his family on this vacation, or, I was out for wings and beers and they said that they're having this much, sex a month or whatever, or, you name it, right? And it's like, oh, well, we're not doing that, or you guys don't fight about that. We fight about that. And then you start comparing yourself, comparing notes with your marriage and everyone else's marriage. And that will get you in a whole world of trouble, man. So the first thing we became vigilant about was not comparing ourselves to other marriages and other, and not comparing myself to other husbands, and my wife not comparing herself to other wives. I think that's huge, man. But when it comes to the things that we started doing was you guys probably have you heard about the concept of love languages? Yeah, right. And so really embracing those is and that's a more common concept. Obviously, a lot of people have heard about it, but if you haven't, there are 5 love languages. There are gifts, there are quality time, there are words of affirmation, and acts of service, and physical touch, right? And so my love languages are acts of service and words of affirmation. So I feel most loved when my wife is helping me with something around the house or doing something for me, and she's encouraging me with her words. Now, the way love languages work is that's also how you more naturally extend love. Now, her love language is quality time and physical touch. And so she craves one-to-one time. She craves being touched. Physical touch was actually almost 0 on my... I could go forever and not even touch anybody, And so not only was she trying to love me in that way, because that's how it works, but she was craving that. And I wasn't loving her in the way that she could receive and her me. And one of my mentors said to me, if she says she doesn't feel loved, because she would say that, I don't feel like you love me. And I said, well, of course I love you. I tell you all the time. Think about this. I tell you, right? Because remember, words of affirmation. I tell you all the time, look at the things I do for you, because we're acts of service. And so my mentor said to me, if she doesn't feel loved by you, you're not loving her well, right? What you think is irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like if she says, I feel like you don't love me, then you are not loving her. So figure out a way to do it in a way that makes her feel loved, because her feelings are her reality. And I was like, oh, so I can't make that excuse anymore. I can't say, well, no, you're the problem, because look at all I'm doing, look at all I'm saying. No, I actually got to take ownership of that and say, how can I love you through spending time with you and through touching you, because those are the ways that you receive love, right? So it was a big thing for me. Another thing was understanding our core values. When we got married, my wife's core values are really around relationships, fostering friendships, family. She was very intuitive, emotionally, very connected that way. I am more driven by, accomplishments, career, some of those different things. So very goal oriented. And so when we were, I tell this story often, but when we first got married, she was working a casual position as a healthcare worker, and I was working three part-time jobs trying to make ends meet. And I remember at one point she canceled a shift because her girlfriend went through a breakup or something like that. And I remember thinking, how in the world could you cancel a shift or not show up to, whatever, because you want to be with your girlfriend because she's heartbroken? Here I am busting my, trying to make ends meet. And I was on a fundamental level I could not understand. And now she also, because remember, your core values determine how you see the world, right? Very, very deeply rooted. She, for the life of her, she couldn't understand why I would choose work over a relationship. And so that was an example, a simple example of ways that we were clashing in our core values. And the problem with that is when you do something or say something that really rubs against someone's core values or crosses a line with them, it cuts at a deeper level than anything else. And so for us, understanding our core values was a huge one. Third one was family of origin, right? So my understanding of, so her relationship with the paternal or masculine men, or her relationship with her father. Her father is an amazing man. I love him, and he's incredible. He's very, very different than me, right? In the sense that he's a little bit more quiet, more gentle, more soft-spoken, a little more emotionally aware and in tune. I am not. It took me a long time to figure that out. And then, of course, my relationship with my dad was very, very different. He wasn't around very much. And so what her expectations of what a good man how he would talk, how he would respond, was very different than how I did it. Right, and same thing with me. My mother, right. My experience with with someone with a loving, nurturing relationship, that maternal relationship. And when I got married to her, they're very different women. And so I had to just constantly reset on her as well. So where we came from, our experiences with those most intimate relationships and how that played out in our marriages was huge because they were both so different. And so I think those three things, and there's obviously a heck of a lot more than that. But for the sake of the episode, those three things are really big needle movers, in your marriage that you need to pay attention to.
And I think this is something we don't actually talk about enough on the podcast. Like, it's all about, we're dads and men and mental health and all this stuff. But like, I think we had an episode with my pastor. His name's Joe Angelo, and he actually runs a marriage podcast. And so we had hit him on actually, you know what? This is kind of funny because it was last Valentine's Day that he was on. He came on and talked about marriage. And so we don't talk about it enough. Like, we're trying to get our wives on for the Mother's Day episode, and they're fighting us tooth and nail. But with most of the time, with dads comes moms and comes marriage. Most of the time, if you're trying to be healthy for your family and stuff, it's strong. And if it's not strong, you're working on it. So it is cool to talk about marriage and just I think we tend to forget a lot that it's not a one-sided thing, parenting, and that the moms are there, and that making that relationship strong is ultimately going to make our relationships, our kids, stronger. It's going to make everything stronger. So good on you for, seeing everything and working on it and like just bringing it out. And like, because a lot of people could just sweep things under the rug and just be like, oh yeah, we argued, I'm just not going to worry about it. And then it becomes a thing down the road,
Can I jump in there real quick?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Something that I say often, and it usually gets some controversy, some heat, is that I believe the most important thing you can do is love your wife. The best gift you can give your kids is helping them understand that they're second in priority and that your wife is first. Somebody asked me a while ago, they're like, so my son Jet was born 14 months ago, and they're like, what do you want Jet to know? And I said, I want him to know that he's number 2. And they were like, what? You can't say that. I said, absolutely I can, because Jet will grow up to be the husband that I am today. Jet will grow up to be the father that I am today, the man that I am modeling. I'm teaching him in my actions on how to respect a woman, how to love a woman, how to show up in the workplace, how to do, all those different things, how to love himself. And so therefore, he needs to see that my wife is a priority. Because if I don't make her a priority and I put everything else in front of her, he's going to do the exact same thing when he becomes a man. And he's going to recreate the same problems that I have created in my own marriage. And so for me, I'm like, man, I need to transform this pain that I've been working through and work on my marriage so I don't transmit it to him. Because he's going to carry on. He's going to just keep unpacking that baggage that I haven't unpacked. And at some point, generationally, somebody's going to have to. Yeah. But if I don't work on my marriage and if I don't make her a priority, my wife, then, he's not going to see it when he becomes my age as well. And so that's why I always say, man, the best gift you can give your kids is a man who wholeheartedly loves his wife and makes her a priority.
No, I really like that you talked about this cycle and breaking it. And teaching your son, how to love a woman, how to love, a significant other, how to cherish relationships in life. You're right. If you don't deal with your baggage, this is just what we learn as dads and as husbands. If you don't deal with your baggage, it becomes you. I know people don't like to hear this, but like, you give your baggage to your spouse, you give your baggage to your kids, and you say, you know what, you can hold this for me. You can hold all this anger. You can hold all this, all this rage, everything. You know what? I'll just let you hold on your shoulders. When you put it in that perspective, especially for your kids, like, your wife, obviously an adult, right? So you don't look at it as, that. But if you look at like if I took a 50-pound bag and I threw it on my kid, who's 4 years old, like, that's gonna crush him. And we don't think about, like, if you don't deal with that stuff, you're gonna throw it on them. And they're going to have to deal with it. Or they don't deal with it and they pass it on and they become a bad example of what a dad is and what a husband is. And then that just keeps on going. And it's that generational, some people call it generational curse. But it's got to, it stops with you. Mm-hmm. You got to come to that realization. You all see all this baggage. You're like, you know what? I'm done passing it on. I'm done letting it be part of my identity, and I'm going to change. And so I really like that, you know, you have that perspective and you're able to share that and you're able to give it to your child. That is the best gift, is the best version of you. You know, and also you guys are a team, right? So if you're not treating her and making her a priority, then half of that team is going to suffer, and you're going to ultimately suffer too, because in order to make parenting work, both parties have to be in alignment and moving forward together. So yeah, I really like what you said. Resonates.
I think it was Lou Hassan who said, unpack your baggage so that your kids don't have to, you know. That's another one. But you know, it's I'm passionate about that. And you know, I like that you said it's a, you know, it's a 50-50 thing. It's there's two people in this relationship. And I think, you know, on the you know, on the flip side of some of the conversation we're talking about is a lot of men die, you know, to their needs, and they become a martyr, and they, you know, there's some nobility or pride in like dying on the sword, falling on the sword, you know, and just giving everything up for their families. And you know, the old adage, happy wife, happy life. I don't care about what I need, because as long as my wife is happy, then we're good. When I don't believe in, I don't know if you guys have ever talked about this, but I don't believe in that statement. I had a guy on the show, his name is Andrew Shaw. He's from the UK. And so I give him credit to this, but he reverses it, and he says, happy life, happy wife. Meaning, when you are taking care of, when you're putting the oxygen mask on yourself, as they say, first, you're taking care of your needs, you have firm boundaries, and you are majoring on the majors in your life. And then you are creating a life where you are content with who you are as a man, as a father. You're going to show up on a whole different level, and that will make your wife a happier woman in the end, when she's married to a man who's confident, who is a man of integrity, who does the things he says he will do, because that kind of man is a lot easier to be married to than a man who just bends over backwards constantly, is insecure, is, you know what I mean, and is resentful and bitter, because that's where happy wife, happy life ends up. Yep. I've been there. I've been that guy. You know, I was, and it ends up me being resentful and bitter towards my wife. You know, and so you're right. It does take two people fully like locked in and taking care of themselves and taking care of one another, so that they can both take care of the children.
Yep. And so I did find it. I found the.
Oh, good. I'm glad you found it.
Yeah, I caught up with the train, y'all.
The whole thing was just me stalling until you found that thought, man.
No, so what it was is like going back to you're talking about how to be healthy for your kids is to be healthy with your relationship, and taking that time and having them be second is, you know, our wives are going to hopefully be here after our kids are moved out and gone. And a lot of people think that, oh, well, I'll just work on it when the kids are gone, and I'm not going to take that time. Now we're going to go on dates, we're going to do all this stuff, but you need to work on the relationship now, because when your kids move out, you're not going to know the person you're living with. But if you work on it now, take those dates, take that time, like, you're going to have that friendship still when your kids are gone, and it's just the two of you.
Well, yeah, and we know there's so often in our lives that we fundamentally change. With women, you know, the three big ones are marriage, childbirth, and menopause, and there's more than that, but those are three big times when women's mindsets, they change hormonally. Sometimes obviously they change in a big way. And so what happens is, if you don't communicate well and grow together through all those different milestones, you're right, the kids move out, and then you're living with a stranger, and you got to learn to love the stranger. And it's like the divorce rate for empty nesters is quite high, because the kids move out, and then they finally, after 40 years, not 40 years, the kids would be, you know, let's hope 25 years, 20 years. After 20 years, they got to get to know the spouse again. And a lot of times they turn inward and they're like, I don't like what I see, you know? And so that's huge, dude. Huge.
See, it's a good thing I caught up with the train. So
it was worth the wait.
Yeah. I like to make people wait sometimes. It just brings my thoughts, make them sound a little bit more profound, you know?
Yeah.
But no, yeah. Well, as dads, so like let's talk about fitness a little bit. Like you got into shape, you lost a bunch of weight. That's something me and DJ have been working on a lot in our lives. Like I'm not proud of the fact that I was this weight, but I was 420 at my biggest.
Wow.
Yeah, real big, unhealthy. I had to sleep through the night. I had to sit up in bed. It was just not a good life. And I'm down, which I'm not happy with where I'm at right now because I've gained a little bit of weight just from the holidays and all that, not getting back on track. But I've lost almost 100 pounds ish, 80 pounds ish.
Wow.
And so, can you talk about that? Like, just seeing, like, with what you do, dad's life, men's lives transform by walking them through weight loss and all that stuff.
Mm. Oh man. We just need to do a podcast weekend where we just do, a 3-episode launch because I could talk about this all day, bro. Yeah, man. So I'm just gonna write a couple things down because I don't want to forget them. The biggest thing is consistency over intensity, right? What I mean is, hold on, I'm gonna write one more thing down. Consistency over intensity is, it doesn't matter how intense you go. If you're going, balls out for like 2 weeks and then you can't keep it up because you made some outrageous goal, then that goal sucks because it doesn't get you anywhere, because working out for 2 weeks isn't going to do anything. So what can you do that's sustainable, right? That you can do consistently for the rest of your life. So instead of saying, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week and then after 9 days flame out and then just end up back on the couch eating Doritos again, maybe instead you want to say, I'm going to walk around the block once a day, right? And that's it for now, because I need to be consistent in building these new habits. But we live in a polarizing culture. We live in a world where it's really sexy to talk about the extremes. It's the it's the 75 hard, it's the carnivore, it's the keto, it's the, you name it, right? And it's been this way for a long time. Extremities garner attention, but unfortunately it sets us up for failure. And so with my clients, I say, we're not going to do anything that you can't do for the rest of your life. Because if we're making a plan to do something for 3 months, that's not going to change your life.
Yeah.
It's going to get you nowhere. And so what's the point? So what can you do to pursue consistency over intensity? So if I've got some heavier clients, when I'm saying, they need like say 100 pounds, 150 pounds, whatever to lose, some of our first goals are to like stop eating potato chips. Number one, we're not even talking about the gym. It's like, can you stop eating Doritos? Or what's your favorite chip? Or like, what's your favorite, pop soda? Coke. Okay, can we swap that out for a Diet Coke? That's it for this week. That's all we're gonna do, right? And then can we get you walking around your block once a day? And then after that, okay, we pull out chips, we pull out pop, we pull out, we have you walk around the block. Now can we walk around maybe your circle? Can we pull out French fries and substitute it for sweet potatoes? Whatever, right? So we're making small, tiny decisions over time that are sustainable. And the reason why is because self-confidence, a lot of people who find themselves who are overweight get there because of emotional eating, or there's some type of dependency where they soothe themselves with food. They had a hard day, or the kids are driving them crazy, wife's pissed them off, whatever. And so they resort to food. I mean, there's a large majority of people that this is the situation for them. And so what happens is they have to form new habits. They've got to become more confident in this area. And confidence is eroded when we break promises to ourselves. And so what we're doing, and so inversely, the way to increase your self-confidence is to make small promises to yourself and keep them, right? That's it. And so what's a small promise I can keep to myself and keep it for the rest of, so we do this, and a good way to find where you're most insecure or lacking self-confidence is find an area of your life where you've broken the most promises. Usually with men who are overweight, it's like, well, I said I'd start on Monday. I said I'd get the gym membership. I said I wouldn't eat that. I said I would, and so now what does it look like to reverse that process, to build up rapport with yourself again, to say, hey, this is what it looks like. I'm just going to not eat potato chips. Okay. And then after 2 weeks, you're like, I think I can do that. I just did it. Mm-hmm. Look at what I did. So I started stacking wins. And then we make those promises bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because people look at me, they say, how do you train like that? How do you eat like that? How do you maintain that body fat percentage or whatever? I'm like, well, I didn't start this way, right? I started making small promises, right? Like mine was that, like, I'm just not going to eat potato chips, right? So for example, I could take a client to the gym, drive to the gym, park in the parking lot, and drive back home. Not even work out, because we're trying to get them into this behavior of going to the gym, right? And then and maybe 2 or 3 days later, when they're used to getting up early and they're used to making that drive, then we're going to go in the gym and we're going to do one exercise, and then we're going to leave. Right? And then we incrementally increase. This is how we make sustainable change, right? So avoiding extremities, saying what can I do sustainably, and then doing those things repeatedly over time are huge. And then the third thing is focusing on your diet and your nutrition. So many people don't understand this. It's like 85% of your results come from what you put in your mouth, not what you do in the gym. I see guys all the time. I work out at a gym where there's a McDonald's across the parking lot. I see the bros coming in, it's like usually like younger guys, right? They crush a big workout and they rip across the parking lot to go to McDonald's, probably eating a burger, a Big Mac and fries or something, right? I mean, you just erased everything you did. You cannot out-train a bad diet. As the old adage goes, your body is built in the kitchen and sculpted in the gym. It's built in the kitchen. And so you think about business, right? If we knew that 80% of our profits would come from this one thing, why in the world would we focus on the 15%?
Right.
In fact, we probably wouldn't even pay attention to that 15% until we really dialed in the 85%, because that's where the money's coming from. But we do this all the time. We train, we go to the gym, we train, we run, we lift heavy weights, which is important. Yes, of course. But then when we come home and we're drinking frappuccinos from Starbucks, and we're, doing all these different things, right? And we're just over consuming calories, which is really where the big work happens and where you see the big results. So I take my clients on the first thing I do with them is take them on a journey of understanding their emotional relationship with food and their psychological relationship with food, and teach them to be like, what is that? And how can we get your diet under control? How can we design your environments to optimize you for success in the context of fitness? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are 3 big things I focus on with my clients.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Like you said, you got to build rapport with yourself again. You got to show yourself that you're going to show up. And I feel like you can apply this to basically anything in life.
Yes.
Being a good dad, being a good husband. It all starts with small habits, small wins. Because let's face it, however old you are, if you're starting now, let's say for me, 32 years old, right? Starting at 32, I have 32 years of bad habits that I've gotten to this point. So I'm not going to change overnight. It's not realistic to think that I'll be, super ripped, or that I'll be a great husband overnight, or that I'll be a great dad overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take all these habits and slowly change them to align with what I want. You talked about values too, and how that really dictates what you do in life. And you figure out what you want in life, and then let's work towards that. And just those small wins, you said stacking the wins, and it is crazy. We don't think about that, like 80 to 85%. Like there is it's just crazy we just don't think about these things. So, I really like it. I resonate with it a lot. So,
Well, and when it comes, just a real quick little tip, if you're listening and you're wondering about, food, if you're a guy listening, or you're, Alex grandma, um, and you find yourself struggling with eating, I walk through an exercise with my clients, and it's called just the 3 different types of hunger. Okay, so we eat for 3 different reasons. Number 1, stomach hunger. And that's the hunger that tells us that we're like, our stomach is actually empty, and it's a real hunger, right? Stomach hunger. Mouth hunger. That's when we eat because we're craving some kind of texture, something creamy, something sweet. It's a mouthfeel thing.
Mm.
Stomach hunger, mouth hunger, and then heart hunger, which is the biggest one. Heart hunger is all about emotions. It's like, are you eating because you had a hard day, or because you're tired, because you're stressed, because you're anxious, or happy? Anything. And so what I walk my clients through is an audit. Every time they put something in their mouth, what kind of hunger is causing you to eat? Is this heart hunger? Are you eating because of your emotions? Is this a mouth hunger? Or is this actually stomach hunger? Because the vast majority, it's heart hunger. Mm. And very, very rarely do I work with men who are overweight and they're actually eating because they're genuinely hungry. And so I walk them through an apple test. So I say, I want you to look at, picture an apple, okay? Or if there's an apple in the fridge, when you open the fridge, does that apple, when you see an apple, does that make you want to eat it? Because if you genuinely want to eat the apple, then you're probably really hungry. But if you look at the apple and you want everything else other than the apple, you're probably not really that hungry. You understand what I mean? So we do the apple test, and but it is a good litmus test for where you're at. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's a simple little tool that you can use.
That's good. I think that's the same thing for me. I think that's why I gained so much weight. So I lost my job a couple years ago, and we've talked about this, so I won't go really into it. But and just this sitting at home alone by myself every day with food in the fridge, it's just like you get bored, and it's like, well, I guess I'm just gonna eat. I'm just gonna sit here and watch TV and do this and this while I apply for jobs, and that's all I'm gonna do. And so it packed on the weight,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, man, it's and mindless consuming, right? Another rule is like, I set up for guys, it's like, don't eat and be on a screen at the same time. Mm. I mean, you could consume 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories easily while watching a movie. Yeah. And there's another principle that I set up when I lost weight. It's like, I will intentionally, I'll create my snack, my meal, or whatever. I'm going to eat it, and I'm going to enjoy it, because also you don't enjoy the food the same way when you're distracted. And so you're going to feel, you're going to enjoy the moment. It's going to feel good to eat the food and taste the flavors. Your satiety signals are triggered because your brain is engaged. And then I'm going to put the food away, and then I'm going to watch TV or scroll on my phone. And it's honestly, man, just separating those two are huge, right? So, yeah, man, hopefully that helps too.
It's the mindless consumption of America that we or just of the world, I guess, in general. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Going back to I know you commented on the confidence thing, DJ, and I think we like to overcomplicate confidence, and make it more complicated than it really is. But finding your self-confidence as a man isn't that complex, right? So number one, what you need to do is, and if you're listening to this and you're insecure in a certain area, I want you to write these steps down, okay? I mean, I'll break it down for you. Number one, get clear on what you want and why. Like, what do you really want? And usually it's in an area where there's an insecurity. So get clear on what you want. Number two, get clear on who that man is, or who you need to become to be that man, right? Number three, then you just reverse engineer your daily steps. Or you reverse engineer that into daily action steps to confirm your identity and to create those desired results, right? And then number four is you find a community of men who are locked into that same thing, that same pattern of growth. And then number five is you just work the steps, right? And then you do it day after day after day. And so, for example, if I want to be more confident in, I don't know, let's say, well, we were talking about fitness. So, okay, well, what does, so step number 1, getting clear what I want. Okay, I want to lose 50 pounds. Okay, great. Number 2, who do I need to become? You get clear on who I need to become. Okay, well, what kind of man? A great question to ask yourself is in the moment is, what would a fit person do? What would a healthy person do? And that's called externalizing, a psychological term where you take yourself out of the situation. And do I want to eat the Big Mac? Yes. What would a fit person do? Would they go and have a salad instead? Yes. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. So you understand who you need to become. And then third, reverse engineer that into daily action steps. So, health, obviously prioritizing your nutrition, going to the gym, all those different things. Then number 4, you find a circle. So you start a community, join a community, form a community. I don't care. Get around other men on a weight loss journey, because that's what's going to support you, the brotherhood. And then make promises to yourself and keep them day after day, and have those men hold you to that, right? And that's why that's why I started the Dad Nation community, because I wanted to get around men who wanted the same things as me. And we have a private group of men called the Dad Nation Coalition, which is like a small group of men. And I take men, like cohort groups of men in clusters like this on this journey, because it's important that they lean on each other to do the things that they said that they wanted to do, right? And that's how we gain confidence in any area.
Yeah.
I fleshed out in fitness, but it could be in your marriage with your wife, it could be in your faith, it could be in your finances. You're trying to get out of debt, it could be, losing your anger or losing your temper or getting angry. You start a group, with men who are also trying to keep their cool, stuff like that, right? So hopefully that helps.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think it helps out a lot and puts in perspective that it just starts with the small steps to move yourself forward. It's not huge leaps. Yes, it'll be a huge leap from where you are to where you want to be, but how you get there is going to be the small steps and the small wins, and just kind of tackling it day by day versus, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 3 years to be that. Well, if you think about it like that way, then you probably never wanted to change, because you're like, you know what, it's too long, I don't want to stick to it. If you think about daily things you can do, start building that confidence. And I appreciate that you brought that up. And yeah, as we kind of wrap up the episode 1, I want to say, like, I appreciate you so much for being on here, for saying yes to coming on here, for sharing everything that you've learned, your mindsets. There's a lot of things that you said on here that are like, you can go and apply it right away to your life. And I know you kind of mentioned Dad Nation a few times on here. But yeah, if you want to share, I know they can find you on Instagram. I don't know if you have a website, but just kind of share where people can find you if they want to get a part of your program. And yeah.
Yeah, man. You can find me on Instagram. I'm not really like I'd like to be on Facebook and TikTok and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't, with coaching and all the other things, the podcast, I don't have time. So I'm going to just do one thing really well.
There you go.
Getting clear on that, or I'm trying to do it really well. But yeah, Instagram at Dad Nation Co. My website is www. Does people say that anymore? www. dadnationco.com. Yeah, and then you can check that out the website. I have a podcast that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. If you just search the Dad Nation podcast, you can find that there. And yeah, man, so I do group coaching. I do one-to-one coaching, like I mentioned. And so if you're the kind of man listening and you're stuck, I usually talk about, a lot of the times when we face tension and anxiety, it's usually because we know we have a clear picture of the man that we want to be, the man that we know we could be is this guy. And this is the man that we currently are and the life that we're currently living. And in this gap is that anxiety, is that tension. And that's just living beneath your potential. And so if you're a man who's listening and you've felt that tension and you know that you're called to more, to be a better father, to build a strong body, to build a strong mind, to forge a passionate marriage, then yeah, man, hit me up. Would love to chat. Whether it's just taking in the podcast or you want to work with me one-to-one or jump in a group, happy to have the conversation. But either way, my mission is to serve as many men as possible. So if it resonates with you, reach out. And I just want to say thank you guys for having me on the show, man. This has been a blast.
Yeah.
And I know I talked a lot because I'm pretty passionate about some things. So, but thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, definitely. And just to follow up with DJ, thank you. We love having people just get on here and talk about it. It is good to be passionate because a lot of times, like for me, my train it goes away. And then it's good when guests get on here and can talk, because we've had some guests that it's times where they're like, oh, I don't know what to say. And we're just like, oh, well, all right. But no, it's good. It's good that you can talk. But yeah, thank you for that. And we look forward to staying connected with you and, potentially more collabs in the future.
Yeah, I would love it, man.
Yeah. And my wife just walked. I just saw her go past the window. Cool. Well, thank you again. Everyone that's listening, we love you guys. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye, guys.
Peace out.
See ya.